Interesting stuff from Dan Gosling, the Bournemouth midfielder, talking about Jon Moss, the referee. This was during Bournemouth's defeat against Sheffield United. He said, "I thought he was a disgrace." The comments that he made, especially to me and one other player, talking about the relegation zone, and you're still in the relegation zone, you're having one, your team's having one, this and that. It was very, very disrespectful. This seems to have divided opinions somewhat on social media. Craig,
does it?
Where do you stand on this?
You know where I stand on this.
Why is it divided opinion?
You're standing up for the referees.
Reminds me to do this. You know I do this every now and again.
Yeah.
Big baby. Yeah, it was actually because, listen, you know, and I've seen a few people say, oh, the referee should rise above this. They should, you know, rise above it and, you know, it's unprofessional. Don't give me all that nonsense. I mean, Gosling and another player apparently whinging about a referee giving a bit back. These referees, the minute they get to your ground to the minute they leave it, get absolutely battered from all and sundry. Supporters, players, coaches, everybody. And then, in the main, they do a great job restraining themselves. But Shaq knows some referees like to give a bit back now and again. So if you're going to be berating a referee during the game, I think it's fair play to expect a little bit back.
And I had no problem either giving or receiving from referees. And now let's be honest here. Jon Moss didn't just come out to Dan Gosling and say this. Something had to be said to him first, and it's a reaction. Now, if you as a player are willing to criticise the referee, the job he's doing in whatever manner, you have to be prepared for the referee to then criticise you. I think it's part and parcel. And you know, as Craig rightly points out, certainly back in our day, it used to happen a lot. And nobody noses put out a joint by it. To be honest, I find the whole thing rather embarrassing for Gosling, for Bournemouth, for whoever the other unnamed player is involved.
You know, nothing epitomises the modern day player. Mm. And actually maybe modern day society more than this. You know, modern day society, people wake up in the morning looking to be offended. Something has to offend them. And they're never happy until they're offended. And this is this case with a modern day player being offended. I'm surmising the conversation could go something like this. After not getting some decisions, you'll say to the referee, you're having a nightmare. You're having an absolute stinker, referee, and you probably throw in a few expletives. Mm-hmm. Right. And he might have said, have you seen the league table?
Right.
And you're saying that's a problem.
Before we go to Gab, I want Frank Leboeuf to chirp in on this. Frank, where do you stand?
Well, I will totally agree with just Craig and Shaka said, because yeah, I don't think there is, because we have only one version of what really happened, but I'm pretty sure that the referee didn't say that, you know, just like that without being offended at first. So I'm pretty sure Gosling didn't say the other part of what happened. And you have to accept that when you tease a referee, and I was the first to do, and I'm sorry for that. Well, not that much, but you have to accept that something's going to happen to you in return. So I sometimes said to referee, I remember saying to him, you know, yeah, you should go home. You know, we're going to sort out the problem without you, much better than with you in the middle of the field. And the year after, he came to me and he said, you know what? You should go home, you know, because I think Chelsea is going to play better without you. So it's just have to accept that, and it's part of the game. And maybe you shouldn't say that to the media, especially when you have only one version of what really happened.
Let's bring Gab Marcotti into the conversation. Gab?
Yeah, look, I take the point if it's the environment and it's the kind of relationship that Craig obviously had and Frank with the referee. When you're talking to somebody, you know when it's banter and you're giving it and it's back and forth, and you know when it's something else. I wasn't there, as Frank says, we only have one version of events, but I do think that, look, Dan Gosling isn't a kid. He's played many games in the Premier League and the Championship. He's no doubt been officiated by Jonathan Moss before. If at this stage he decides to come forward, then maybe, just maybe, we give him the benefit of the doubt, or we remain open to the possibility that maybe this wasn't just a usual back and forth, comfortable banter, but that maybe a line was overstepped, and maybe it's not just a case of Dan Gosling living up to his rather effete last name.
I don't know any referee that would instigate. Never, ever heard of a referee instigating something like that without first taking a berating. Can you imagine going into that dressing room, that Bournemouth dressing room, and saying to Eddie Howe and whoever, "Oh, that referee, he said some nasty things to me today. Oh, it's terrible. I mean, it's... Oh, we should... Do you want us to report him to the Premier League?" Well, yeah, well, but we'll report him to the Premier League because you might be offended if we don't report you. Yeah.
But Craig, you can see how this guy sits there for 10 years and it's all just banter and it's all funny and ha ha ha, and it doesn't bother him. And then all of a sudden, he goes out and he calls the referee a disgrace and he decides to go public with this. You're not the only one having this kind of reaction, saying, "Well, what's the problem? Why don't you live with it? Well, why are you being such a millennial?" Which, by the way, he's not. Maybe. I mean, I think we have to be open to this possibility. I don't know Dan Gosling personally, but it's just so extraordinary that you'd come out and say this, that maybe there is the possibility that a line was crossed.
Well, no, because the Premier League have looked at it and said...
They've obviously listened to the tapes and everything, and the transcripts, and they've said, no, they're not going to investigate any further.
If those quotes are true, Dan Gosling can do it.
A line can only be crossed if nothing was...
But what if just Jon Moss wakes up every day and just hates Dan Gosling, and just that's his obsession?
Exactly. And that's what Dan Gosling is hoping we believe here, that Jon Moss was not...
A voodoo doll.
Yeah, Jon Moss, nothing was said there. He just comes storming into Bournemouth one day and like, you are one bad player.
He drove all the way down to the game in the motorway and he was rehearsing it. Dan Gosling, I'm going to say, Bournemouth are terrible. Bournemouth are terrible. Bournemouth are terrible.
I can see referees doing that with Craig. Because I've had many a thought of such driving in my days.
At one point I thought, and it might be, I don't know, something might happen, but at one point and after I thought, knowing the world we live in now, somebody's going to say, well, we're going to have to take Jon Moss off a game or something, just to show that we're doing something. Right. Something stupid like that. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, but I wouldn't put it past something stupid like that.
What sort of conversations did you have with referees?
Well, I've told you a couple, but when I was in... Graham Poll, by the way, who was at the time the top referee in England and maybe beyond, he wasn't shy, Graham, and he's probably still not shy, but he wasn't shy and saying a few words to you. Right. But in Scotland, Willie Young, who was the top referee, one of the top referees in Scotland, and he's now an after-dinner speaker, he had all the lines. I mean, he said to me, and I told you this, I was berating him one game, absolutely killing him verbally and with expletives, and he said, "Burley, any more of that and you're going to visit your teeth in the dressing room." So that's what he would say, and I was like, "Okay, what you're saying is that's a red card." And then a couple of times he came up to me once and the crowd were booing, and they were booing him, for a decision, but he came up to me and he went, "You think the crowd are booing me, but they're booing you because you're having a nightmare." And do you imagine me going back into the dress? And I was telling, actually, a great one I was telling you, and somebody reminded me this on Twitter. We missed 2 penalties at Aberdeen in the midweek game. I think I'd missed the first one, and I might be wrong, but Simon Donnelly or somebody missed the second one. And we had another penalty claim not long after, and I shouted at Willie Young, "Willie, that's a penalty!" And he went, "If I give a penalty, I'm going to have to take it." And I thought, but that's... And, what was I supposed to do? Go in the dressing room at Celtic and say, "I know we've lost today at Aberdeen, but Willie was quite rude to me."
It's a bit mean.
So, let's all grow up here. And I don't know, but Dan Gosling and his compatriots really need to have a good think about what their biggest issue is this season. And that's trying to stay in the Premier League, not whinging about what seems like a bit of give and take, with a top Premier League and FIFA referee.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.